Birds Movie Log, Tape 5, date June 15th, 1980. Top 5 Alfred Hitchcock films. Alfred Hitchcock was an English director, producer, and probably one of the inventors of cameo appearances. His first cameo was in his own film called The Lodger, A Story of the London Fog from 1927. Now let's take a moment to think. How long ago was that? The answer would be a really long time ago. Being the master of suspense and crazy talented SOB, he is easily one of the most influential filmmakers ever lived. So, since movie theaters keep failing me, I think it's about time to dive into the world of good old Hitch. The world of suspense, tension, blondes, plot twists, cameos, more blondes, Jimmy Stewart, murdering wives, murdering blondes, shady mothers, and birds. Now, before moving forward, let's reach some clarity. I haven't seen his entire filmography. In my defense, Hitch directed over 50 films. In my offense, however, I had plenty of time to do it. But we're just gonna work with what we have. All movies on this list are good movies. You can go ahead and buy yourself a physical copy of any, if not all of them. Cause in the end, your collection would be much brighter, you're not gonna embarrass yourself later at a party, and you'll make your parents proud. Movies that are missing are not bad, they just didn't make the cut, while the ones that did are the best in my opinion, obviously. Anyhow, 5 is a rather small number, and that is why I decided to throw 2 rankings into the mix. All rankings cover only 5 films in this list. First of all, Hitch's cameos, and then the same 5 films, but according to Oscar snub level. With that out of the way, let's do it. Number 5 is The Birds. Wait, are the birds? No, wait. Is the bird? No, that's not right either. Number 5, The Birds from 1963. It's a disaster film with Rod Taylor and Tippi Hedren. It's the latest movie on this list. Before people were afraid of sharks, bees, worms, ants, or frogs, they were afraid of birds. Every entry on this list is unique. This one is the only non-thriller, mystery, crime film and is the most straightforward one. Birds of all species unleash hell on people. It may sound simple, but there's a lot more going on. There's romance, crowd dynamics, humor, toxic relationships, horror, and of course suspense. But one must bring patience entering this film. It has a slow build-up. Birds don't strike until half the runtime. It doesn't mean you're gonna be bored until then. You'll have a chance to enjoy a small coastal town atmosphere and clever structured dialogue. That's one of the reasons I love Hitch's movies so much. Although he wasn't a screenwriter, the dialogue is always on point. Characters always know the right thing to say, which makes actors' jobs easier. Rod Taylor was pretty charming and Tippi Hedren did a good job for her screen debut. But what's really amazing is the visuals, starting with colorful picture and all the way to the titular birds. In this day and age, you'll know the difference between the props, the tricks, and the real thing. And that's what makes the real thing more impressive. In the end, it is plot twistlessness that lands this film at my number 5. Number 4 is Vertigo from 1958. It's a mystery film with James Stewart and Kim Novak. This one is unique because it's the saddest story and the only movie with supernatural vibes. A former detective gets hired to follow a woman who the client believes is haunted. Before the end of that sentence, my butt was already in a seat armed with popcorn and soda. Things get psychedelic, psychological, psychopathic. If the previous entry doesn't have any, this one is a vertigo of twists. Get it? Vertigo of twists? Because Vertigo is the title. You're thinking one thing, wrong, you go the other way, wrong, you believe you know how it all ends, wrong again. In the end, Opus 6, North is Green, and Sandwich is the capital of Paris. Top-notch directing includes fear of heights on-screen embodiment, transition from room to room, transition from person to person, a perfectly accurate nightmare sequence, and much more. This is the first of 3 Jimmy Stewart films on this list, and it's my least favorite one. I don't want to spoil anything, so let's just say the reason of that is in the 3rd act. And Kim Novak gives you twice as much as any female character on this list, if you know what I mean. And thank God this film is in color. One beautiful location changes another. You'll have city streets, Golden Gate Bridge, museum, Sequoia Forest, church, and more. I'm not a big fan of romance, and that is why it is my number 4. Number 3 is Rope from 1948. It's a thriller film with James Stewart, John Dahl, and Fairleigh Granger. It is the oldest movie on this list. If you ever seen a good play, you'd know what to expect from this film. This one is unique because it is constructed as one 80-minute long continuous shot, and it's the darkest story. 2 guys kill a person for fun, shove his body in a chest, and throw a party in the same room. And if that wasn't enough, that guy's father is amongst the guests. Unlike the previous film, this one gives you no secrets, you just watch how it all turns out. The entire movie takes place in an apartment, moving from room to room. Exactly like in a play, minimum locations, maximum dialogue. And as you might have guessed, the dialogue is great. Small print, big words, no sales. This is the second of 3 Jimmy Stewart films. Hey, welcome back, and second favorite. And may the patience be with you, cause he shows up 30 minutes in. Until then, well, and after of course, you'll enjoy performances of John Dahl and Fairleigh Granger, both good at what they do. Now about that one continuous take illusion. In 1948, cameras could only fit about 10 minutes of film, so it was impossible to shoot an entire movie in one take. And I bet all of my savings, which are $27, that Hitch wanted it to be one take. At least it is fun to notice how camera goes behind actors' back until the screen is dark to let editors stitch 2 shots together. Straightforwardness is the reason this film is my number 3. Number 2 is Rear Window from 1954. It's a thriller film with James Stewart, Grace Kelly and Thelma Ritter. A photographer is stuck at home with a broken leg and nothing else to do but spy on neighbors through the rear window, and that's the title of the movie. You see how awesome it already is? But then he starts to suspect that one of the neighbors did something terrible. Each and every one of us enjoys an evening by the window, with the lights off and a pair of binoculars, watching neighbors getting physical from time to time. Anyone? Just me then. And that's what makes this movie so relatable, please don't tell me it's just me. Apart from the main plot, it's a study on loneliness. A lonely woman is struggling to find someone, a ballet dancer is lonely surrounded by men, a pianist is lonely hosting a party, even the main character is lonely being in a relationship. Speaking of the main character, it's the third of 3 Jimmy Stewart films, you just won't live, will ya? And it's my favorite one. The way he speaks, the way he reacts to neighbors, the way he tries to scratch his broken leg. Grace Kelly makes you want to watch more films with her, and Thelma Ritter gives you plenty of reasons to remember her name. I said every movie on this list is unique. This one had the biggest movie set at that time. Everything you see is a movie set. It was 1954 for f***'s sake, unbelievable. The only reason it's my number 2 is because my number 1 is so ridiculously fantastic. And now it's time for a game show called Guess My Number 1 Pick. No, seriously, guess it. Today's prizes are a slice of thin air, a space between words, and a box of nothing.
Box not included.
You may choose from the following: A. Rebecca from 1940, B. The Man Who Knew Too Much from 1955, C. Psycho from 1960, and D. Frenzy from 1972. I'll give you a second. Ooh, a penny! Time's up. It's not Rebecca, cause I mentioned that Rope was the oldest one. It's not Frenzy, cause I mentioned that The Birds was the latest one. It's not The Man Who Knew Too Much, cause I mentioned there's gonna be only 3 Jimmy Stewart movies. Which leaves us with one option. Or does it? Number 1 is Dial M for Murder from 1954. 10, 10, 10! The answer was on the wall all along. It's a mystery film with Ray Milland, Grace Kelly and John Williams. No, not the Star Wars composer. And we're back to the theater-resembling movies. This one is unique because it's the most fast-paced, and not just on this list, but out of all Hitch's films I saw. Honestly, if you're a slow blinker, chances are you'll miss something. A retired tennis player hires an old classmate to murder his wife, and a plan he shares deserves a movie of its own. I really don't want to give anything away, so if you trust Hitch, just watch this film knowing this, or less or nothing. You know this beautiful thing when a movie twists and turns and leaves you feeling like a fool lost in a foreign country. I enjoy it every time any film does it. Just as main character's career choice, the film itself plays tennis throughout the runtime. It strikes dialogues, actions and situations back and forth, forcing every character to think fast with no seconds to waste. It's like the screenplay was written by a bunch of sly ninja foxes. Speaking of sly foxes, Ray Milland's performance leaves you doubtless that he came up with this plan. Just as John Williams's, that he's able to untangle everything. Grace Kelly brings a different set of skills from same year's Rear Window. Visually, this film is probably the least impressive out of 5, but it keeps me on the edge of my seat every time I watch it. And I'm here for the story, and so should be you. And that is why it's my number 1 Alfred Hitchcock film. And now a special correspondent, Robert Waterbridge, with a final report. How are the rankings, Bobby? The rankings are doing great, they are prepared and ready to be published. Back to you, Sam. Okay, so firstly, cameos. Number 5 is Rope. Hitch walks with a woman in the street. The problem is you never see his face. If you don't know it's him, you'll miss it. Number 4 is Dial M for Murder. He's on a class reunion photograph. A clever one and very subtle, but I like the motion ones more. Number 3 is Vertigo. He's walking in the street with a trumpet case. Probably the most casual one, nothing special. Number 2 is Rear Window. He's winding the clock in the musician's apartment. Unlike all the other cameos, he was in a location shown multiple times in the film. And number 1 is The Birds. He's living in a pet shop with 2 dogs. It's a triple cameo. They were actually his dogs. Needless to say, the cameo was a great idea movie folks use to this day. And now the same 5 films according to Oscar snub level. Number 5 is Rear Window, 4 nods, 0 wins. Well, at least it was noticed. Number 4 is Vertigo, 2 nods, 0 wins. 2 is better than none, am I right? Number 3 is The Birds, 1 nod, 0 wins. Do they even watch what they are nominating? Number 2 is Rope, 0 nods. Seriously? No, let me rephrase that. Seriously? And number 1 is Dial M for Murder, 0 nods. What the actual f***? This is one of the greatest films ever made, which means those 5 films have 0 Oscars in total. I don't want to talk about it.